A very good afternoon to one and all. Welcome to the ninth study circle meeting of the GSTPM. Today we have a very relevant topic, which is uh, year-end closures and accounting with special focus on GST and income tax. I thought of Hiralbai instantly for this, and I have requested Hiralbai to also include the ISD how you have to account for these ISD invoices, because that will be something that needs to be very taken care of. So I've asked him to focus on that. Before we begin, I'd request President for to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Today's speaker, Hira, always we used to say him, Hira of GSTPM, Parth, Vice President, Treasurer Vinod, Joint Secretary Jatin Bhai, and both conveners. See, this topic today is very important as far as finalization of accounts and GST and income tax. He is going to take both aspects together. We normally take should take much focus on the finalization of, because after 2 years we come to know when the assessments are going on. The situation when you come across any of the scrutiny or assessments or audit, then you will understand importance of that. If you do it thoroughly at right time, during that time itself, if you give importance, as he rightly says, that ITC has to take care of, because that is the most important, you can say, the essence of this GST aspect. And income tax as well, depreciation, rates, and let me welcome Joint Secretary Rahul also. So these are very important aspects that has to be taken care of, and we are very grateful to Hiral that he has taken up that responsibility and challenge, and he'll be presenting his paper. This new year going to be started from 1st April. So I request all the members who are there on the online as well as offline to register themselves. And there are various activities going to be there from April onwards. So please be in touch with us. Thank you. Thank you very
much. Thank you, President sir. Before we get to the formal introduction of our today's speaker, I'd like to personally thank him for accepting our request in quickly on the phone itself. So I requested him whether he could take it up, and he was graceful enough to accept it instantly. So thank you, Hiral Bhai. Now I'll request Monarch Bhai to formally introduce today's speaker.
Good afternoon, all of you. Today's speaker, CA Hiral Shah. He is practicing as a chartered accountant since 2006 and a founding partner of SHB and Associates LLP. He has secured 100 out of 100 in accountancy in MCOM. He has also got the degree of LLB from the Mumbai University. He is also qualified as an information system auditor DISA from Institute of Chartered Accountant. He has also completed certificate course on arbitration and conciliation, and he has also passed National Stock Exchange a certificate in financial market, securities market, basic module in July 2005. He has also provided training to GST departmental officers at Mazgaon. He has co-authored book on taxation laws for LLB students with Professor Mokal. He has authored and contributed to various publications which are published by professional associations. That includes estate planning through will published by Foundation for Skill Development, maintenance of records under GST published by GSTPAM, our own association, GST on charitable trust for Jain Chartered Accountants. He is also a speaker and faculty at the Institute of Chartered Accountants, GSTPAM, JCAF, etc. He has been a speaker at various universities as well. He is a faculty at Indo-American Society, Lions Club and Rotary Club as well. With this short introduction, let us welcome today's speaker, CA Hiral Shah. Now I welcome President to offer a memento to our today's speakers. With this, now I request Hiral Bhai to take a charge of the session. Hiral Bhai, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, Respected President, Vice President, Secretaries, and my dear friend, conveners, in fact, Umang and Monarch, and the dignitary audience, online and offline. It is really a pleasure for me standing here at the study circle, one of the flagship events of our organization. Being here is a real pleasure, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. When Umang called me, Hiral bhai, lecture लेना है. हाँ ठीक है, study circle में लेना है. हिरल भाई आपको आना है. It is the relation is such. It is our organization, and all of us have to be there always. Sure. Coming to the topic, why is the topic so relevant today? Finalization is always a topic which requires intense thought work. But why only in the month of March? I feel the days are gone when finalization only happened in the month of March. It happens and it has to happen every moment. At the end of the day or the week or the month, the finalization is a continuous event these days. Those days were gone when, okay, you had lots of time. साल खत्म हुआ, अभी 6 महीने का टाइम है, कर लेंगे, बना लेंगे रिपोर्ट, डॉक्यूमेंट्स बना लेंगे, फाइनलाइज कर लेंगे. Those days are gone. With n number of compliances that have come up, which are absolutely mandatory, that you cannot skip even one day in terms of deferment of any of the compliance. Any compliance cannot be deferred even to the next day. It has to happen the same day, because you have things like e-invoicing, e-way, your e-way bill. Everything is getting uploaded, and you do not have any scope at all to change it at a later point of time. Therefore, yes, finalization happens every day, but still year-end closure norms have to be seen, and we that is what that is the purpose why I have been invited by our association. Now, just before the start of the lecture, we were discussing with the senior, said finalization with respect to accounts. Why do we need to just speak about finalization with respect to GST or anything in specific? It is always, we have to keep in mind that it is finalization of accounts, only the aspects of income tax or GST. That is something that we need to take care of it and get it embedded in our accounts. The accounting goes as per the accounting standards issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India or various bodies. So those things have to be seen. You have to check on things from that perspective, that the accounting is going on, the accounting will always go on. It is just that the GST aspects and the income tax aspects we consider in this part. So it is basically, if we talk about finalization, it is just a process of reviewing. It is happening every day. At the end of the year, probably certain things you wouldn't be able to change even in the month of April or May. So certain things, if you want to amend, you will have to do it right now itself. So start the process of reviewing, adjusting, or closing organizations' financial records before the end of the year, not after the end of the year, before the end of the year. Start the finalization process. I understand most of us tax practitioners, especially GST practitioners, we are more so now going behind the amnesty scheme. Yes, all of us have to run behind that amnesty scheme. कितने जन का बैंक अकाउंट फ्रीज किया, भागो भागो ओपन करके दो बैंक अकाउंट. Yes, we are going after that, we are running after that, but apart from that, this is also one aspect that we will have to do it before the end of the year. So it is, we are reconciling each ledgers, making necessary adjustments in terms of journal entries, getting the funds, passing the entries for say depreciation, taxes, reserves. All those are a part of the financial ambit that we are looking at. Okay. Okay. So when we talk about the context of GST, so in GST concepts context also, what are the items that we will have to keep in mind, that step by step, the major things that we have come across so many years of GST being into existence is something that we will have to see. So this topic of finalization of accounts with respect to GST, that is one topic I had taken way back in 2017 at Dhule. So that was the year when the GST had come new and we were thinking कि अरे क्या करना होगा हमको finalization में. But there are so many aspects, those aspects we will have to see so that the activities of the organization are 100% GST compliant. I would say it is very, very difficult for someone to say that any organization is absolutely 100% GST compliant. But yes, near to 100% would we would consider it as good as 100% only. So our aim would always be to have a true and fair picture, as accurate as possible. As accurate as possible is the only word. When we talk about the finalization of books of accounts, so accounts are accounts as such. And I would like to again repeat it, that accounts goes as per the accounting standards. It is only that the GST aspect and income tax aspect we have to consider. So for finalization, we would say reconciliation of ledgers. Here, I'm talking about books of accounts. All of us, most of us GST practitioners would always say ledger matlab cash ledger, credit ledger की बात कर रहे हैं. No, books of accounts, the ledgers of the different debtors, creditors, all the loans, everything, all those ledgers have to be reconciled, whether they are in order or not. If possible, get the confirmation from parties. What happens is, now if we try to tally this, embed our GST aspect into it, at times it happens, especially with MSMEs, that some kind of a ledger entry is passed, goods return, something is done, or something or the other is done by the opposite party, but it has been done unilaterally. We do not know about it, our client doesn't know about it. So if a ledger confirmation, instead of after year end, if it is done well in advance, right now only, whatever rectification, if any, has to be passed in the books of accounts of our client or the opposite party, it can be done before the year end, so that later on at any point of time we do not face any music कि अरे लेजर टैली नहीं हो रहा है, उसने ये क्रेडिट लिया था, वो नहीं लिया था. All those things do not come into picture, and it is sorted well within the year. Even the assessment portion, at times it happens that during the assessment, it is qua the year. So if some adjustment, some major adjustment entry has been passed later on, in any of the GST returns. In our GST returns, we have the option up to for the next 6 months, you can have some modification or the other for a particular financial year. Now, if that happens in the next year, say in the month of April 25 or May 25, we pass the entry for some adjustment in the 3B return. What does the system take while at the time of assessment? The first thing that ये साल के अंदर 3B का इतना total है, then we have to explain it to them कि this is the difference, we had adjusted it in a subsequent return or something. So instead of doing that, if it happens during the year only, in the March return itself, the adjustment entry is passed. it would definitely be beneficial. With that, the advantage would be that we wouldn't be having any notice, we wouldn't have to reply. पहले ही अगर काम हो गया है, नोटिस आएगा, सिर्फ एक चीज का नहीं आएगा, फिर उसके अंदर 4 चीजें दूसरी भी आएगी. उससे अच्छा नोटिस ना आए. That is the basic crux. Adjustment for accruals and provisions. There are always provisions and provision entries that have to be passed. So all those accruals, provisions, provision for some expense, provision for its input tax credit, everything, all those provisions can be accounted right now. This thought process starts much before the year end, so that the adjustment happens in the, say, GSTR of the month of, for the month of March, or if we talk about income tax, the TDS return that would be required, instead of filing a revised return for the TDS. कह रहे ये entry रह गया, वो entry रह गया, ये professional fees दिया था, TDS नहीं काटा था. All those things can be accounted at point zero itself. आज हो रहा है, आज काम चल रहा है, तो ध्यान में आएगा, वरना ईयर एंड हो गया, नेक्स्ट ईयर में बिजी हो गए, तो ऐसे ही काम निकल जाएगा. Depreciation and fixed assets review. Say banks have the system of bank audits. If few of us would be into bank audit segment, the audit of banks, what happens is the review of the assets for the bank can be cash or all the physical assets. Everything happens. Most of the uh, calculations, most of the things happen in the first week or within the 15 days of the year end, by 15th of April itself. So why can't we have it with MSMEs as well? Cash counting, it happens on 31st March itself with most of the bank branches. The auditors are there to verify the cash. Similar things in terms of fixed assets review, inventory review, it can be done well in advance. By, say, as on date, as on 21st of March, we can do the aspect, the calculation, the checking, everything of something up to 15th of March. Then it will be really useful कि खाली 15 दिन का ही difference check करना बाकी है, or everything is already accounted. Otherwise, what happens? It goes on, and then we are left with कह रहे वो asset लिया था, उसका invoice का entry बाकी रह गया है, उसका depreciation कैसे ले? So certain things become a hassle. The inventory valuation, verification of loan accounts, interest calculation, finalization of profit and loss account and balance sheet, that is the final goal. But to arrive at the final goal of finalization of profit and loss account and balance sheet, all these steps have to be seen through. So now that those aspects were the general aspects for the closure of books, financial books. Now, what are the things that we need to check for the year-end GST law compliance? So, maintenance of records. If just we go by the section 35 of the GST Act, CGST Act, pertains to maintenance of records. You have an entire list, an illustrative list of documents which are to be kept. I have am showing that also. These are the basic documents that have to be there, which are prescribed under the GST Act. So the tax invoices, the bill of supply, if no tax invoice is there, the debit note, credit notes, self-invoicing, a very important but highly ignored aspect is of self-invoicing. The payment voucher, receipt voucher, refund voucher, delivery challans, e-way bills, e-invoicing applicability. So these documents, whether they are there in order or not, what happens generally is that we tend to, okay, we are looking at the aspect, we are looking, and then once the year ends and we are busy with the next year compliances, then okay, we tend to forget. Then we are back to square one. Those books of accounts are retrieved only and only at the time of some assessment coming up. Assessment नहीं आ रहा है तब तक वो वैसा ही पड़ा है. After 7 years, 8 years of GST, when we speak to some of the MSME clients, clients or general traders, नहीं ये तो हम कर ही नहीं रहे हैं, इसका कभी जरूरत पड़ा ही नहीं, सर इसकी जरूरत है ही नहीं, मार्केट में कोई नहीं कर रहा है. It happens. So at least when we say कि today, if we take care of it, probably we would be able to retrieve those data, but not otherwise. Otherwise, it becomes really difficult to tackle the same. Reconciliation, most important. The question comes, why? Why do we need that reconciliation? किस चीज का reconciliation करना है? Simple. What I'm talking about today is reconciliation so that we can establish the data integrity, the compliances are in order, the audit procedures can go smoothly, audit by the department, our internal audit or any kind of audit. Financial planning also becomes very important because earlier for many items, say pre-GST, अरे 5% का है, थोड़ा बहुत हुआ तो कुछ भरना पड़ जाएगा तो भर देंगे. But now under GST, most of the items fall under the 18% slab. And if there is some kind of mismatch, your entire financial planning goes for a toss. 18% भरना पड़ा, वो बोलता है कि मैं 3% कमाता हूँ, 6% कमाता हूँ, 18% किधर से भर दूं? But your financial planning will go for a toss if there is no proper reconciliation. The stakeholders trust on the organization, if it is a big organization, a public limited company, or even a smaller organization where somebody has invested the funds, those stakeholders trust would also go for a toss if some kind of a mistake has been discovered at any point of time. So, initial review. So first and foremost, what is the step for your initial review? Is you have to compare your total outward supplies and other income which is recorded in the books of accounts with the figures which are reported in your GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. That is a primary step that we need to do. E-invoicing बना है, e-invoicing नहीं बना है तो इनवॉइसेस एटलीस्ट जो है वो रिकॉर्डेड है या नहीं है वो देखना पड़ेगा. दैट इज द बेसिक इनिशियल रिव्यू दैट वी नीड टू डू. द इनवॉइस लेवल वेरिफिकेशन, so that is the next step which involves your comparing individual transaction. You're comparing of each and every transaction, each invoice in the books. We compare it with the corresponding entry in the GSTR1 and vice versa. Identify any discrepancy. Okay, initial review we did. Okay, bills are recorded or not. We went up to the basic invoice level verification. Okay, which invoices were not verified? Whatever discrepancies are identified, those discrepancies have to be rectified. So rectification is the next step therein. And apart from rectification, so how do we do the rectification in our books of accounts, in our GSTR 3B? So There is a specific procedure thereof how to do how to get the rectification done. It is by having the entry in the subsequent 3B return. Have a proper documentation of the discrepancy of whatever the reconciliation was done, any mismatches, whatever corresponding corrective actions are taken, that has to be properly documented. Why so? Why do we need so many things? Because the disadvantage if we do not go in for reconciliation is simple: penalties. It is once I had heard a very beautiful thing. When a client says ki compliance is expensive, it is we just have to say, okay, fine, compliance is expensive, don't worry, try non-compliance. That will be super expensive. So financial penalties for non-compliance can lead to various kind of penalties. The other legal implications would be severe instances like matlab, for very high non-compliances. It can be non-compliance for any of the aspect. एक GST return नहीं भरा है. There is so much of billing which is done, but there is no GST return which is filed, or there is some amount which is pocketed by, which belongs to the government and is pocketed by any of the dealer. You can have severe implications, legal implications also, which can be as bad as imprisonment as per the GST laws. Interest charges. Any discrepancy may result in the accumulation of interest on unremitted tax liabilities, increasing the financial burden on the business. Audit risks. It is one of the major aspects that inadequate reconciliation. So when the auditor comes and it is seen, ye bhi non-compliance hai, ye bhi non-compliance hai, you do not have a face to show. Most of us would have faced business audit by the department. If the department officer feels, yaar ye log kuch bhi nahi kar rahe, GST returns not filed on time, these documents not available, those documents not available. So the impression is only bad, and the audit risk of getting those things sorted is really high. Reputation, it goes for a toss. There is non-compliance, return is not filed, the dealer gets GSTR1 is not filed, the dealer gets a call from the opposite party stating, अरे हमारा GST का पैसा दो, क्या चोरी करके बैठे हो, पैसा लेके मेरा पैसा दबा के बैठे हो, मेरे को GST क्रेडिट नहीं मिल रहा है, आपने रिटर्न नहीं फाइल किया इसके लिए, आपने पेमेंट नहीं किया इसके लिए. It is very bad for any kind of businesses. The reputation of the organization goes for a very big toss. Therefore, non-compliance, not getting the reconciliations and compliances on time, this is a major problem. So there are at times, chalo, supplies, one would say 1 3B matched, it is proper, there is no problem. But we would say many a times, out of the personal experience, we would say during any audit or assessment, we find out there are many items which have missed 3B also and 1 also. So the major thing that gets missed is other supplies, not the major supply. The other supplies get missed out. And at times it is not necessary that they would have any tax implication, but at least the disclosure thereof would be required, and non-disclosure can lead to unpleasant consequences. Because say for example, the first example that is visible on the screen, insurance claim received, it is termed as that it is not a supply. Agreed, it is not a supply. But what is the problem? If the amount is over there, it is showing in your profit and loss account. So the first thing, anybody who is looking from the revenue side will always feel, why is GST not paid on this? Your amount of sales is exactly tallying with the outward supply in your 3B. So then why have you not shown this? You would say, it is not considered as a supply. Okay, so you could have declared it at an earlier point of time only. That could be disclosed earlier. Interest on bank deposit, it is an exempt supply. Interest on loans given, exempt supply. Interest from customers, it is a taxable supply. So what you will have to do at the time of finalization, have a proper bifurcation. Heading, have a proper heading for those things. चलो interest के अंदर सब interest आ गया. Then when somebody asks you a question, then you give them the bifurcation. Why? Have the bifurcation ready initially itself and give it as a disclosure. Why wait for the last moment to, when only when asked we will give a detail? No, it cannot be that way. It has to be earlier only. Profit on sale of mutual fund units, it is not a supply. Say profit on sale of personal assets, say a proprietorship concern, it is not in the course of business, still it is taxable. For certain items, yes. Dividend income, no, it is not considered as a supply at all. So you have to see, you have to look at the things, the nature of each and every entry, and pass the entry accordingly. So while verifying the reconciliation, interstate stock transfer, it is treated as outward supply, though it is not a sale transaction. All of us know that under GST, interstate stock transfer within the organization itself is a taxable supply. It is shown as a taxable supply in the GST returns, but at the time of finalization of accounts, it is not required. It is within the organization itself. Inter-branch, it has to be knocked off. Excuse me. So even though it is not an outward supply, even though it is an outward supply under GST, under common parlance, for the purpose of your books of accounts, it is knocked off and it is not shown as a part of your sales. Because for one branch, it is shown as sales at the time of branch accounts. For the other branch, it is shown as purchase. But at the time of finalization, it has to be knocked off. Recovery of from employees like notice pay reimbursement is treated as an outward supply, though it is not a sale transaction. We have to come over the stuff. Sales was different. Now the concept is of supply. So it is treated as an outward supply, though it is not a sale transaction. So there are many cases where companies are charging GST on free samples, free of cost supply, which are not reported as a sale. If it is given, it has to be shown accordingly. Any amount recovered from the vendor on account of penalty is treated as outward supply, though it is not a sale transaction. You have distributorship agreements. They provide for clause. Say that if you terminate the agency before 1 year, before 2 years, the lock-in period, then you have to pay some amount of compensation. So those transactions, even though it is not a sale transaction, it has to be shown as a supply of service. Subsequent adjustments or rectification of returns. So when you find out, okay, there's a difference between your GSTR 3B and the value of outward supply reported in GSTR 1, those adjustments have to be shown. Ideally, those adjustments should be done if up to the month of February, you check it today itself and you find out that there is this difference. Adjust it in the month of March itself, the return for the month of March, which you would be filing in the month of April. The basic advantage, as I said earlier, is when your annual figures are picked up by the department at the time of preparing your GSTR 9 or 9C, they would exactly tally rather than keeping in mind, अरे ये एंट्री है ना, ये एंट्री मई मंथ में की हुई है, ये जून में एडजस्ट किया है, ये जुलाई 25 में एडजस्ट किया है. No. So your paperwork becomes less cumbersome if it is done right in the month of March itself. So it is natural that there would be changes, but these changes, if accounted now, is a big advantage. The value of outward supply should be matched. Yes, it is a standard norm and we have to do it now. Verification is advisable in case of composite supply as well. In a case that company may classify such supply and GST rate pertaining to, see, you have composite supply items, mixed supply items, how those things are bifurcated. If they are checked now and there are any changes, it can be adjusted now. Adjustments, how would you do it? All of us know if there is an error in GSTR 1, we can file an amendment return GSTR 1A to rectify the mistakes. This can be done within the prescribed time limit. Yes, all of us know the time limit. If an amendment is required in your GSTR 3B, so as and when the error is known at a certain point of time, so that can be rectified in the subsequent GSTR 3B. Any reclaiming of input tax credit is required. If you have missed claiming ITC for a particular month, you can adjust it in the subsequent months. Yes, it is allowed, but within the financial years, subsequent returns before September or annual return, whichever is earlier. If there is a genuine mistake which is made in the return, yes, you have to rectify whether genuine. There is nothing like a genuine mistake or a non-genuine mistake. Mistake is a mistake. You have to rectify it under any circumstances. If there is any interest liability which comes up because of the mistake, yes, it has to be paid. When I'm saying you have to rectify it, it is advisable to rectify it in the month of March itself, but that does not absolve us from the liability. Say it is for the month of May 2024 and you are doing it now in outward supply pertaining to May 2024 and having that in March 2025 return. So for whatever period there is a delay, you have to make payment for the interest, additional interest liability if it comes up. Any penalty, the basic rule for penalty is that as and when discovered, the mens rea is very important. If the mens rea, it is proved that, okay, you are guilty, you have done something which is wrong, then and then only penalty is payable. But these days we have the concept of a fee. Everything is put in as a fee, late filing fee, that ways. But if it is payable, you have to pay it and close the matter. So you again, at the cost of repetition, please maintain proper documentation of whatever rectifications, calculations, adjustments that are being done. One aspect comes in these days. department is also verifying everything, your import data, your IGST from the IceGate portal as well. You can also do it well in advance so that you do not find any problem at a later point of time. So even your e-invoicing has to be done. Yes, ma'am, you have a question? See, in case it is closure of business or anything, and you are it is okay. So, matlab, as in your client has uh, the registration has got cancelled. Huh. Okay, and ITC is lying. Huh. So that uh, as so as I started, it is whatever things that we are looking at is from the angle of the basic accounting fundamentals, the basic accounting principles. So here, if we talk about a simple thing that okay, ITC is not there. ITC now you cannot avail the ITC because the registration is cancelled. So that becomes your expense. And once it is your expense, you have to show it on your P&L debit side and claim that expense as ITC not claimable. Bad debts kind of discount, bad debt, but you can clearly mention it separately that ITC which is not claimable because of cancellation of registration. No, you have to put this. You generally put it under duties and taxes, but here you have to pass a journal entry and shift that amount from balance sheet asset side to the P&L debit side. Yes, as non-recoverable.
Delay this accounting entry for 2 3 years, because if there are certain assessments which are going on, it is possible you may use this money for paying off your premium. And nothing remains. No. Automatically. So, no, correct. You can't, but for your earlier periods assessments, you can use. You don't need to reverse it in the GST ledger. No? So ledger में खड़ा है. Yeah, that's the point is those things are delayed. That is GST 10 was not filed. That is why we go through it. Even if you file GST 10 in your ledger, it has to remain. The officer cannot.
So when the amount is lying in your credit ledger, so yes, it can be. It can be. Till the time your assessment period is not over, you keep it pending. And once the assessment period is over, okay, nothing is going to, no liability is going to come up. And in any which ways, you cannot claim the refund thereof. So that becomes your expense. That is also your loss. So expense it out in your profit and loss account. ITC not recoverable. Have it in have a new head in your P&L account. For the advantage of the online audience, the query was that what about the lapsed income input tax credit, which is not recoverable. What is the effect thereof that has to be shown in the books of accounts for the purpose of income tax? So the reply for that is claim it as a expense. So with respect to your IceGate ITC matching, it is on month basis. It is getting matched. Even we are getting emails from the department stating it is a system generated email which is coming that there is a negative balance in your IceGate and IGST. So that has to be looked into. So there are restrictions for eligibility of availing input tax credit. All those aspects are also to be seen for the debit notes which have come up from 22. So many parameters which have restricting the input tax credit, which have been brought into the statute under section 38, which prescribes the situation in which the recipient will not be eligible to claim ITC due to such defaults. So any restriction that is there. Now, if we combine our GST books, GST aspects, and the books of accounts, so anything which is not claimable, that will be directly debited to your P&L and claimed as an expenditure. So we have to even match our these days the 2A 2B have to be matched. So these are the verifications. One of the major verification that is always that is very advisable is that in cases of bill to ship to transactions. See, as the transaction is over, as I said, now it is daily finalization, as I would say, because the invoices, the e-invoices, the e-way bills, everything is out of our control. So even in those cases, if we discover while at the invoice level checking whether there is some mistake, the place of supply is erroneously mentioned, the bill to details, ship to details are erroneously mentioned, it can be rectified in the return for claiming the input tax credit, or during the year only it can be rectified, as and when you come to know, at least we can have some kind of checks and balances at that time. So it is always it is advised, make sure that all liabilities with respect to reverse charges are paid, and if not paid, they must be paid at the earliest along with interest. So what about the reverse charge? So we have there are specific cases. Earlier we had everything under reverse charge mechanism. Now there are specified cases under section 9 subsection 3 of the CGST Act or section 5 subsection 3 of the IGST Act. The government has given various at various occasions, various notifications have come up wherein specified cases like your goods transport agency, advocate service, arbitral tribunal, sponsorship, insurance agent, those things that are covered under the reverse charge category. Everything is not under reverse charge category. So that is something that we need to see. Latest, chalo, jo purana hai, everybody remembers. Goods transport agency, yes. Advocate services, yes. Uske andar karna hi hai reverse charge. What is new in this year vis-a-vis last year? Would say rent. Reverse charge on rent is a major aspect that we would have to check, verify and pay in the current year. हम भूल जाते हैं अक्टूबर से आया रिवर्स चार्ज उसके ऊपर करना है नहीं करना है. See, if you tend to forget the reverse charge, the consequences are too large. What are the major consequences that come up? You tend, at the time of assessment, the officer would say, no, you have to pay this amount in under reverse charge. Fine. But I cannot give you the credit thereof because the time has lapsed. See, there are various, I would say various opinions, how you can fight it out, how you can take it ahead कि नहीं ये claim कर ही सकते हैं. But those are the things that would go into litigation. वो लड़ना झगड़ना पड़ेगा. What we are trying to do right now is finalize the books, clear the things in such a manner that you do not have to fight with anybody at a later point of time. So that is our basic concern and basic concept. So therefore, see to it that the reverse charge on rent, which is the new item, has been complied with or not. supply of services free of cost to branches located at other states. Now we have the concept of ISD, which is compulsory from 1st of April. Therefore, those older concepts go away. Now, the point under the ISD, Import Service Distributor Scheme, is very clear that you will be able to pass on the credit for that month in that month itself. As in, say there is some kind of a common charge, some input tax credit which is available in the month of March, in the month of say May 2025 or April 2025, the input service distributor has to transfer the proportionate amount in that same month itself. What is the repercussion of that in this finalization is that if anything is pending right now, you will have to see to it that it is cleared before 31st March. You would not be able to say in the month of April, now I want to distribute it as an input service distributor. That would not be possible. Therefore, you will have to do it right now. That is very important to see. You have few days, whatever common charge is there for this financial year has to be done right now. Do not defer it to next year. For your common input services. Again, we have to recheck the eligibility of input tax credit, which we generally do if items which are ineligible under 17.5. Your food and beverages, outdoor catering, motor car related expenses, those things are not available. So we will have to see that those are reversed. One of the most important aspect, 180 days. Any payments which have not been done, you will have to reverse that. If the payments are not done within 180 days, reversal has to be done. Otherwise, what happens is, again, at the time of assessment, the payment is done after 180 days, but the assessment, when it comes up, would say, no, 180 days not done. I am disallowing. I will not allow the input tax credit. But at the time of assessment, you will not be able to reclaim it at a subsequent time also when the payment is done, because the time frame has lapsed. The general rule for 180 days payment is you are not able to make the payment within 180 days, you reverse it, and when the payment is actually made, you reclaim it. But say, for example, the reversal was required in the month of January 2025. You have not reversed it. The payment was done in March 2025. So you are eligible to reclaim it. You are supposed to reverse it in the month of January and reclaim it in the month of March. None of these transactions are done under the GST law. What happens is, in the month when the case comes up for assessment, it would be disallowed in the month of January, but it will not be allowed to you in the month of March. The officer stating that your time for claiming that credit has lapsed. Therefore, I won't be able to give you the credit thereof. Then again, the litigation, the Pandora's box opens, litigation starts. So instead of doing that, rectify the things at a proper time itself. Foreign payments. Foreign payments, many of the foreign payments are required for reverse charge mechanism. You have to charge and claim if eligible on the transactions. How would one come to know? अरे कितने ट्रांजैक्शन है? वो एक्सपेंस साइड पे था ट्रांजैक्शन, हम इनकम साइड पे देख रहे थे. All of us have a tendency, the legacy tendency of checking the P&L credit side and not looking at the debit side. So it so happens, वो पता नहीं है. There are ways and means. Again, when we are linking GST and income tax, the point is you can log into the income tax portal and check if there are 15 CACB certificates which are issued that proves that foreign payments are made, and if those foreign payments are made, whether it is required to charge under RCM or not. Because see, most of the things it becomes key, yes, it is eligible for claiming, but it is just that the procedural aspect has not been complied with. उधर भरना है फिर क्लेम करना है, उतना नहीं किया तो वो भरवाएगा असेसमेंट के वक्त पर क्लेम नहीं देगा. So company writes off any goods. Okay, write off ITC needs to be reversed. If there is any write off of goods, then it has to be seen and proportionate whatever ITC has to be reversed, it has to be done. Reversal of ITC in case of exempted or non-GST supply, wherever there is proportional reversal that has to be done, you have to get the proportionate reversal done so that things become streamlined. Revisiting the basic, the beneficial circulars, exemptions. See, there are many a times for certain industries, certain exemptions are given, certain circulars are there. If there is a specific circular which is of our advantage during the year, I strongly suggest to my clients also that if we have the beneficial circular, take the print of the circular and keep it in your, say, sales file. Sales file में ही रखा है. It can be retrieved when you are going through, because it always happens that we tend to forget. We do not remember what happened 6 months back or a couple of months back. How do we expect ourselves or anybody who is finalizing the books of accounts to remember what had happened years back? So it is always advisable to keep beneficial circulars, the printout thereof, in the sales file itself. Unreported supplies, yes, if there is anything unreported, report it in the month of March itself in the GSTR 3B. This was everything, 3B, 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 GSTR 1, 2A. Now, the GST aspects, I was said that I have to cover certain important income tax aspects as well. So, from the income tax aspect, one major amendment which had come last year, section 43B, subsection H, payment to MSMEs, very casually known as the 45-day rule. Payments have to be done to the MSME creditors, whichever are eligible, within 45 days. If there is an agreement of 45 days or beyond, or if there is no agreement, within 15 days. Why am I highlighting it now? Because everybody comfortably remembered the things in last March. Everybody was in a hibernation state till now for the last 11 months. We need to wake them up that the payments, again, that MSME rule is there. It will at least take a couple of years for everybody, the accountants, the business owners, to again realize, yes, the 45-day rule is there. So it is a wake-up call that before the year ends, we again intimate the business owners, the accountants, that the 45-day rule is very much there, and we have to follow that. The 15, whatever you call it, the 15-day rule or a 45-day rule, it is called that way. Yes, ma'am. Hmm. Hmm. See, if the bill raised, the invoice raised is dated in the month of March 2025. Okay. So during the year, there is no problem. See, if the, okay, the invoice is raised pertaining to the closure of books for March 24, the invoice is raised in the month of May 24. The payment is received in December 24. Then in this case, there is no requirement for any calculation. Even, yes, I am MSME registered, chartered accountant practicing, yes, I'm eligible. Even if my client doesn't pay, uh, in this case, the 45-day rule is not applicable because the expense is disallowed during the year and it is again allowed in the same year itself. Therefore, there is no disallowance as per Income Tax Act. What happens is there is no specific agreement. So let me presume that it is he has to make the payment within 15 days. On 1st May, when the invoice was raised, 1st May 2024 invoice was raised, the payment had to be received by 15th May 2024. It is not received. So ideally it is disallowed, but we are not into the GST aspect where it is a monthly return. We have an annual return only. It is disallowed for the month of May. It is allowed in the month of December. So during the year, there is no disallowance at all. The disallowance comes into picture. Why at the year end? Because the financial year would change. Say an invoice is raised on 1st of March. The payment had to be received by 15th of March because it is without a written agreement. By 15th of March, if the payment is not received, the payment is received on 2nd of April. So disallowance is in financial year 24-25 and allowance is in financial year 25-26. So that is where the same financial year, there is no problem at all. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All the MSME registered under manufacturing or service, not under trader. So subject to other conditions, yes, it has to be done within that period.
Including for all of us, what we do is in income tax, if we are filing their returns and all, we just put a note saying those details are. Now, can that excuse also work?
No. Ideally, that excuse cannot work because we are just absolving our liability by just mentioning a note. That is ideally not correct.
Yes, not.
Yes, sir.
They are not. They are not. They are not.
At least claim your fees. At least claim your own fees. Then with respect to similarly the TDS provisions, again, as I pointed out that income tax is an annual return, so it is not a problem. The problems were in GST returns when it is a monthly return, but here the TDS return is a quarterly return. There are transactions which might have got missed out. TDS deduction might have got missed out. So you will have to check whether all the TDS, TCS has been deducted, collected within the time, paid to the government on time. There are different interest rates. If you have not deducted for delay in deduction, there is an interest. You deducted but didn't pay to the government. That is, you have taken extra advantage. You pay a higher interest thereon. Pay the interest, file the returns on time, so that here also the concept of TDS, TCS is also a fiduciary duty that is given. We are like agents for on behalf of the government, that we are collecting the amount and remitting it to the government. So those things have to be done on time. There are huge penalties. There have been huge matters which go up to prosecution level if the things are not done. In case of TDS, it is not so much in case of income tax, but yes, for TDS it is too much. Calculate your advance taxes properly. The 15th March deadline has gone, but even by 31st of March, pay whatever advance tax is payable, so that there is less amount of interest which is payable to the government. Yes, sir. Yes, please. Okay. Hmm. Sir, see, I started the session with that point one is we are talking about the financial statements, profit and loss account or balance sheet that you are preparing. We are finalizing that. Now, GST aspect and income tax aspect are ancillary to your finalization of books of accounts. So here, when you are claiming the GST, the input tax credit, as per 2B or 2A, whatever the case may be, it is imperative that you have to pass the entry in your books of accounts. So now, when you pass the entry in your books of accounts, it is mandatory that you have to pass the TDS entry also. Late payment will definitely come up. You cannot say ki, what many times people do, that you are saying for the month of February, I would say for September 2024, ITC ले लिया, सब कर लिया, and while passing the TDS entry, it will show 31st March 2025. Yes, sir. So that will definitely be a thing. So as soon as you claim the credit as per to be, pass the entry in books of accounts and deduct TDS. So everything revolves with accounts. Everything is revolving around that. Again, matlab, apart from these income tax and GST, even for your labor laws, when the salary is paid, you delay in PF or ESIC. The direct implication comes in your 3CD. At the time of your finalization and filing of 3CD, directly disallowed. It has to be paid. So it is, as of now, we are just considering income tax and GST, but there are so many other compliances also which would revolve around it. PF ESIC, you have to match your PF ESIC with your books of accounts, because of which again your profession tax will come into picture. Profession tax, वरना क्या है, profession tax, हाँ end of the year सब दिखा देंगे कितना है, ज्यादा कम, जो भी एम्प्लॉइज दिखाना है दिखा देंगे. Employee strength, मतलब that doesn't work. So everything with it is like our solar system, the planets revolving around our solar system. So just to conclude, finalization of accounts and year-end closures, they require meticulous attention, detailing, various compliances. We have n number of laws in our country which have to be seen. Whichever law is applicable to you, it has to be checked. Say, as a chartered accountant, I cannot just okay certified something and kept it. मेरे income tax में 7 साल books रखना है, GST में 8 साल book रखना है. अभी तो सब period खत्म हो गया, मैं फेंक देता हूँ. I cannot throw the audit reports because as per CA Institute guidelines, from 10 years from the date of signing any document, I have to retain those documents. So इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स ऑफ इंडिया की भी गाइडलाइंस याद रखनी है अगर कर रहे हैं तो. अगेन we are also dealers for the purpose of the GST Act, and we also have to look at our books of accounts. So early action, I wouldn't say early also, timely action is the key, and we are moving into an arena from human intelligence to artificial intelligence. So all the data is compiled in a super different manner, which used to happen, say, even a couple of years back. Forget a decade back, even a couple of years back, what used to happen and what is happening today is very, very different in a absolutely different scenario. There are a few questions online. I will just take them.
Or you want you to
I'll take it. The question was there that client will import online certain videos and then the same will be resold locally here. Whether on import any IGST to be paid at it will, as it will be online and not physical goods, or if no IGST paid on import online, is there any requirement to pay RCM? If the good, if for the services, the imported services, if it is charged, the IGST, the import duty and IGST is charged, which is normally the case when goods are imported. But if nothing is done, if it is service, no IGST is charged. In that case, RCM would be applicable. RCM has to be done and the claim thereof has to be done. It is mandatory. Similarly, for professional fees from overseas consultant also, it would be liable for RCM GST. The query is, if the supplier has not mentioned on invoice as MSME registered, do I have to chase them or just no legal liability on me? Ideally, there is no legal liability if the opposite person has not informed that he is registered under MSME under the requisite category. If it is not there, there is no liability, but you have to be very careful if there is any communication. If the opposite person at a later point of time proves that an email was sent with a registration certificate or something, and you have not taken note of it, then there can be a problem. Otherwise, you need not chase anybody कि भाई मेरे को आपका MSME status दो करके. Do we need to pass entries for GST TDS not deducted as not been registered? Any provisional entries to be passed for assessment order received but appeal is filed against that? Do we need to provide for interest unpaid on the late filed returns for prior periods? See, if the order is received but you are in appeal, so ideally in the books of accounts you need not mention anything. Absolutely no need to mention anything in your books of accounts, but yes, in the notes of accounts you have to, ideally, the ideal situation, see, for companies, if it is a private limited or a public limited company, as per ROC, as per the law, you have to mention that this litigation is going on. Even the first level of appeal is also a litigation, so you will have to mention it that a litigation is going on. But no need to pass or mention about the liability in the entries in the books of accounts. Uh, Bill date is 31st March 25 and goods received on 2nd April 25. Can we claim ITC in the month of March 25? As per GSTR 2B, for that claim can be passed entry as stock in trade. Is it proper? With respect to the entry in the books of accounts, these are goods which are in transit. So if you are taking the entry in your books of accounts in the month of March itself, as per the bill date on 31st March, then you will have to keep it separately in the stock, in the closing stock, mentioning it as stock in transit. Yes, the bill can be booked since it is a 31st March bill, but it has to be mentioned as goods in transit in closing stock. So I have completed the queries. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bank also. So especially the purchase below 2 lakhs purchase and sales. So how does you arrive on better? There will not be one single customer or vendor you are not paid. So implication was because should I mention the cash or something?
Yes, sir. Proper records thereof has to be maintained to prove that these transactions are not from one single person. Otherwise, this law has been brought in to avoid basically money laundering. For anti-money laundering thing, this law has been framed that you cannot accept, also the payment cannot be accepted above 2 lakh rupees. So precise records have to be maintained stating कि okay, इसका 50,000 आया, इसका 10,000 आया, उसका 30,000 आया. It has to. It has to be. So as I said, even under overall, there are n number of compliances, n number of laws, but even under the income tax umbrella also, you have different things which are to be done. So there are so many things to be done. But yes, all the compliance, you have to be, nobody can be 100% compliant, but whatever best compliance you can do, nearest to 100%, that has to be done. You do not have an option for that. Yes, sir. The confirmation has to be taken from both the parties, stating about what is there, the proper ROC compliances. Okay, you say that amount is for the paid up capital is 10 lakh rupees and the money pending is 10 crore rupees. What is it? Whether the authorized capital has been increased to that level. Certain compliances, certain basic things, basic groundwork, basic framework has to be in place. It cannot be just कि हाँ होता है चलता है, because those things were there. होता है चलता है. 10 years back it used to be okay. 10-15 years back it was okay. Now, as I said, from human intelligence it has gone to artificial intelligence. So heavy penalty. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because it is more so pertaining to anti-money laundering schemes. Therefore, the penalties are super high, and they have to be high also. Yes, sir. That is there, but it has to be whatever we are doing. It has to sound logical. It has to be backed by documentation and should sound logical. Any act, I would say, may it be Income Tax Act or GST Act or anything, it is based, I would say, purely on common sense. What we feel from our heart that this is correct, then it is correct. Internally, we know at times what happens is we try to garb it into something else under the wheel of looking good, looking correct. Internally, we know it is wrong what we are doing. So avoid that. It is basic. Any tax law, any tax legislation is basic common sense which has to be followed. Sure. Thank you once again. Thank the organization for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, Hiral Bhai, for such a detailed presentation. And I'm sure everyone present online and offline have benefited from this discussion. So, thank you for your valuable time. I request everyone to join me in thanking Hiral Bhai. There are a few announcements before we conclude. I request Joint Secretary Jatin Bhai for the same.
Thank you, Umang. So the announcement is towards regarding the membership fees, as everyone knows that from the April onwards, the fees are going to increase. So I requested everyone who are not. So 1 second. Okay. So, no, so the president has rightly shared that, corrected to me that thing, the donor member and the patron members fees are going to be increased. So the right now the donor member fees is 24,780, which is going to increase to 2,36,000, and the donor member is 17,700, which is patron member, which is which is going to increase from 17,700 to 1,77,000. So who are interested, kindly take an opportunity and become the member of the association. Thank you. And it's over to you, Umang.
Thank you. We'll be declaring our next study circle meeting very shortly. We rise for the national anthem. I request everyone to rise for the national anthem. Adinayak Jaya He Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Dravida Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Uchala Jaladhikar तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गावे जय जन गण मंगल दाय जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 जय. Thank you.